No power steering, no synchromesh gearbox, no electronic anything. Just iron grease, a diesel that shook your bones, and a steering wheel that fought back. These machines were built in an era when trucking was a test of pure human grit, and the trucks that survived that era became legends. Decades later, veteran drivers still go quiet when one of these rolls by. These are the 10 vintage trucks from the 1950s and 60s that every serious trucker still respects. Number 10. Volvo F86. We begin in Sweden, and that might surprise some of you. But ask any veteran European driver about the Volvo F86 and they'll tell you exactly why it belongs on this list. The F86 was introduced in 1965 as part of Volvo's System 8, an export-focused truck platform that would become the foundation of the global truck giant Volvo is today. And the timing was perfect. Europe in the mid-1960s was rebuilding its road infrastructure at speed, and operators needed trucks that could go the distance across multiple countries without falling apart. The F86 was built on the cab structure from the Raska tip-top model, which Volvo had introduced in forward control form in 1962. When System 8 arrived in 1965, the truck received a new, more powerful 7-liter turbocharged diesel engine and the critically important R68 speed, range-change synchromesh gearbox. That last detail matters more than it might seem. In 1965, most trucks in service had constant mesh or crash gearboxes, transmissions that demanded hard double clutching, significant skill, and physical effort on every gear change. The F86's synchromesh gearbox changed that equation completely. You could make clean, smooth gear changes without years of experience in the cab. In the United Kingdom, the F86 became something historic. The first overseas-built lorry to be sold on the British market. The pioneering customer was a Northumbrian haulier named Thomas Hutchinson. Initial sales were concentrated in Scotland and the north of England, but the truck rapidly established itself nationwide and became the most popular foreign lorry in the UK. Its success opened the door for other European manufacturers. DAF, Scania, and Mercedes soon followed where the F86 had led, and the British truck industry was never the same again. The cab itself was ahead of its time. Most British lorries of the mid-1960s had fixed cabs dating back to the 1950s. The F86 featured a tilting cab that allowed easy access to the engine for maintenance, a feature that was still a novelty at the time. It also had what Volvo called a rest cab, with a shelf behind the seats where a driver could sleep when necessary. It wasn't a full sleeper, but it was more than anything most competitors were offering. The F86 was also assembled in Scotland for the British market, a practical decision that helped local operators feel comfortable buying a Swedish truck. It came in 4x2, 6x2, 6x4, and 8x4 configurations, making it genuinely versatile. In Australia, the first 4 F86 trucks arrived in early 1966 and immediately went to work on the Melbourne to Adelaide run with the transport company Main Nicholas. The truck remained in production until 1979, 14 years. It was succeeded by the Volvo F7. In that time, it helped transform not only how trucks were made, but how truckers expected to be treated. Comfort, accessibility, reliability. The F86 made the case that a working driver deserved better. That argument changed the entire industry. For that, it earns its place on this list without question. Number 9. International Harvester R-Series. If you were running freight in North America in the 1950s and you didn't own a Mack or a Peterbilt, there was a very strong chance you were driving an International Harvester. The IHR series was introduced in 1953 as the successor to the L-Series, and in its first production year alone, 136,938 units rolled out of factories in Springfield, Ohio, Fort Wayne, Indiana, Emeryville, California, Bridgeport, Connecticut, and Chatham, Canada. Those production numbers tell you what the R-Series was: the working man's truck. Not flashy, not expensive, just built correctly, in large volume, to get goods moved across a country that was rapidly building its interstate highway system and discovering the limits of what commerce actually required. The R-Series introduced several genuinely significant advances. In 1953, International Harvester offered factory-produced four-wheel drive trucks for the first time in its history: the R1 44x4 and R1 64x4. Before this, any four-wheel drive conversion had to be done by third parties. The new capability put IH trucks into logging, construction, and off-road applications where the competition couldn't follow. The cab was the ComfoVision design, an all-steel three-person cab unit with two-piece rear windows for improved rear visibility. The interior featured a padded dashboard and an adjustable bench seat. For 1954, International introduced optional power steering on light-duty models, an industry first for that class of vehicle. The SweepSight one-piece curved windshield offered a panoramic forward view that addressed a real complaint drivers had about visibility in older designs. Under the hood, the R-Series carried IH's own Silver Diamond 220 inline-six, producing 100 horsepower in the standard configuration, more than adequate for the era's payloads and road conditions. The heavier-duty versions ran IH's Red Diamond 406 and Red Diamond 450 engines, which were robust and serviceable power plants used in serious commercial applications. The lighter models used a 3-speed manual as standard, with overdrive manual and 3-speed automatic options, the automatic being a version of the GM Hydra-Matic. The heavy-duty variants continued in production well into the 1960s and were ultimately replaced in 1972 by the Paystar line. The lighter and medium R-Series trucks were replaced by the S-Series in 1955 as IH expanded and diversified its lineup. The R-Series was the backbone of American working transport through a decade of extraordinary economic expansion. Produce companies, cement operators, fuel haulers, construction crews, they all relied on IH trucks to keep their operations moving. Their name recognition in the industry was enormous, and their reputation for being practical, maintainable, and durable followed them through multiple decades of service life. You can still find them at shows, on farms, and occasionally in serious working condition. The IH tradition never really died. Number 8. Kenworth 900 series. Before the W900, there was the 900 series, and that truck deserves its own recognition because without it, there is no W900, no legacy, and no six-decade dynasty. Kenworth introduced the 900 series conventional cab truck in 1956, replacing the 500 series that had been in service since 1939. The 900 series arrived with an all-new drop-frame chassis that was designed from the outset for serious highway use. For the first time on a Kenworth conventional, a forward-tilting fiberglass hood became available as an option, making engine access meaningfully easier than the side-opening butterfly hood that had been standard on predecessors. What made the 900 series significant historically is what it represented in the market context. The mid-1950s American trucking landscape was divided. Cabovers were dominant in states with strict overall length laws, while conventional long-nosed trucks were preferred in the West, where length laws were more generous and operators wanted larger engine bays for the growing selection of powerful diesel options. Kenworth's 900 series was aimed squarely at the conventional market, specifically at West Coast owner-operators who were building careers on long-haul routes and wanted a truck that matched their ambition. Engine options on the 900 series were the major sellers. Cummins, Caterpillar, and Detroit Diesel were all available. Because the conventional chassis gave Kenworth more room under the hood than their cabover competitors had, they could accommodate higher horsepower engine configurations than were possible in cab-forward designs. That competitive advantage was real and was noticed. By 1961, Kenworth had studied what operators wanted in the 900 series and used that knowledge to completely redesign the concept. The cab was raised 6 inches in height and 4 inches in width. The windshield was remounted as 2 panes together. The radiator was widened for better cooling. Bulkhead-style doors with full-length hinges replaced the previous door design. The roof panel switched from metal to fiberglass. The result was the W900, which has been in continuous production ever since. The 900 series lasted only 5 years as a standalone model, from 1956 to 1960. But in those 5 years, it established the long-nose Kenworth conventional as a serious commercial platform, built the brand loyalties that the W900 would inherit, and created a customer base that would remain with Kenworth for generations. Every W900 that ever turned a wheel owes its existence to the engineers and operators who developed and drove the 900 series first. Number 7. Peterbilt 351. The Peterbilt 281 and 351 came out of Peterbilt's Oakland, California assembly plant in 1954 as redesigns of the earlier 280/350 series. The 281 was a single rear axle conventional. The 351 was the tandem rear axle version, and both became legends in their own right. But the 351 had the longer production run and the broader commercial reach, so it takes the spotlight here. The model earned an immediate nickname, the Needlenose. It referred to the narrow, distinctive nose of the truck, a long, tapered hood with a butterfly-style access panel that split in the middle and opened outward, giving mechanics unobstructed access to the engine from both sides simultaneously. In an era when engine maintenance happened frequently and was done roadside as often as in a shop, that accessibility was not a convenience, it was a competitive advantage. Drivers who ran Peterbilts talked about how much easier it was to work on them compared to trucks with fixed hoods or side-opening designs. The 281/351's cab was aluminum, a Peterbilt tradition that reflected the company's roots in weight-conscious West Coast hauling. California produce operators needed every pound of legal payload they could get, and an aluminum cab on a tandem tractor could save hundreds of pounds compared to an all-steel competitor. That weight saving translated directly into more cargo per trip and more money earned. Engine options ran primarily to Cummins. The Cummins NHC and NTC series were particularly popular, with 281/351 owners. The NTC 350 in the truck's later years being a turbocharged inline-six that was well matched to long-haul demands. Transmissions were typically 5-speed spicers produced by Dana, paired with an auxiliary gearbox for compound gearing on heavy loads. No automatics, this was a truck that required a driver who knew what they were doing. The 351's fame reached a mass audience. It never expected through a 1971 made-for-television movie directed by a then 23-year-old filmmaker named Steven Spielberg. The film was called Duel, and it starred Dennis Weaver as a motorist terrorized on the open highway by a faceless driver in a 1955 Peterbilt 281. The truck in the film was repowered with a Caterpillar 1673B producing 245 horsepower. Fitted with an Eaton Fuller RT09 1313-speed transmission to enable the high-speed chases required by the script. The truck's cab was kept deliberately anonymous, the driver's face never shown, making the Peterbilt itself the villain. It was unforgettable. When Duel was expanded for international theatrical release, additional scenes were needed. A 1961 Peterbilt 351 served as the stand-in for those sequences. The original 1955 truck had been destroyed in the climactic cliff plunge. That surviving 1961 351 still exists today, after a 22-year production run, the longest in Peterbilt history at the time. The 281/351 was retired in 1976. The 351 was replaced by the 358 and 359. But the Needlenose had left an indelible mark on the identity of Peterbilt and on American trucking culture. Restored examples continue to appear at ATHS shows and command strong prices in the collector market. The butterfly hood, the narrow nose, the Cummins diesel under the aluminum skin. There is nothing else that looks or sounds quite like one. Number 6. Diamond T 921. The Diamond T Truck Company was founded in 1905 in Chicago, Illinois. The Diamond stood for quality, the T stood for tilt, the last name of founder C.A. Tilt, whose father, a shoe manufacturer, is credited with the original design inspiration. From those origins came one of the most respected names in American commercial trucking, and the Model 921 was the truck that embodied the brand's highest standards. The 921 was Diamond T's flagship heavy-duty tractor during the post-war era. It earned a nickname that followed the company everywhere, the Cadillac of trucks. That nickname was not marketing language. It came from operators and drivers who compared the Diamond T's fit and finish, its ride quality, and its attention to detail against every other truck on the market and kept arriving at the same conclusion. There was something special about how a Diamond T was put together. The 921 was an assembled truck, meaning Diamond T purchased its major mechanical components from specialist suppliers and integrated them into their own chassis and body. This was a common approach for premium commercial vehicles of the era. Mack and International used the same cab design as the 921 in the mid-1950s. Diamond T handled the sheet metal work and final assembly, which allowed them to focus their engineering resources on getting the integration and the quality of build exactly right. In 1940, Diamond T introduced Cummins diesels up to 200 horsepower in their heavy models, alongside their existing Hercules 6-cylinder gasoline and diesel engines. The 921 was available with the Cummins NHC 250, a well-regarded inline-six diesel that gave operators the pulling power they needed for heavy freight. Transmission options included the Spicer 5-speed overdrive and 12-speed synchro-meshed units. A particularly remarkable option was the Diamond T Presto-Matic, a semi-automatic transmission that used a sensing mechanism to synchronize clutch engagement with engine speed for gear changes, essentially eliminating the need to operate the clutch pedal in routine shifting. In the 1950s, that was extraordinary technology for a commercial truck. Diamond T sold 250,000 trucks over its history, as both an independent company and under White Motor Company ownership, which began in March 1958, when White acquired Diamond T. Manufacturing eventually moved from the original Chicago factory to the Rio truck plant in Lansing, Michigan. In 1966, the last true Diamond T rolled off the Lansing assembly line. Diamond T ranked 47th among United States corporations in the value of World War II military production contracts, a fact that underlines the industrial seriousness behind the premium civilian image. The 921 in particular has become a sought-after restoration target. Surviving examples draw significant attention at truck shows, and the hand quality of the build work is visible on properly restored examples even today. The Cadillac of trucks earned that name honestly. Number 5. Mack L-Series. Before the legendary B-Series, there was the L-Series. And to understand why the B-Series became what it became, you need to spend time with the truck that preceded it. The Mack L-Series was produced from 1940 through 1956. It was built during a period that included World War II post-war economic reconstruction, the beginning of the interstate era, and an explosion in commercial freight demand that transformed American business. Through all of that upheaval, the L-Series was the Mack truck that operators depended on. The L-Series used pre-chambered diesel technology for its Mack diesel engines, specifically the Lenova license system, which explains why the exhaust manifolds of that era were branded Mack Lenova. Pre-chamber injection was not as efficient as the direct injection system that would follow with the Thermodyne, but it was proven and reliable, and Mack's vertical integration, building their own engines, transmissions, and axles, meant that the components were designed to work together. That harmony in engineering translated to durability in service. The L-Series was offered in a wide range of configurations: highway tractors, tandem dump trucks, ready-mix vehicles, and heavy vocational applications. Mack had been building trucks since 1900 and had, by the 1940s, developed a product philosophy that was deeply practical. The trucks were heavy, yes, heavier than some competitors, but they were built to last in conditions that would destroy lesser machines. The cab design of the L-Series was functional and upright, with the visual style common to commercial vehicles of the late 1930s and early 1940s. It was not a beautiful truck by any standard, but it was the visual predecessor to the B-Series, which took the L-Series' mechanical backbone and wrapped it in a genuinely modern design. In 1956, the U.S. Navy awarded a contract to Mack for 33 B-Series fire pumpers, confirming that even the military trusted the platform. The transition from L to B-Series in 1953 was evolutionary rather than revolutionary. But the L-Series laid every foundation that made the B-Series possible. Truckers who ran L-Series Macks in the early 1950s frequently became B-Series Mack loyalists a few years later. That continuity of trust was not an accident. Number 4. Volvo Titan L395. Now we look at the truck that made Volvo a name worth knowing outside Sweden. The Volvo Titan L395 was introduced in 1951 as Volvo's first serious attempt at a heavy truck. It had a load capacity of 10 tons and was powered by a large 6-cylinder diesel engine producing 150 horsepower. For the early 1950s, that was a serious power plant. But the Titan's real transformation came in 1954, when it became the first Volvo truck to be fitted with a turbo diesel engine. That turbocharged version developed 185 horsepower, a significant jump that made the Titan genuinely capable in demanding European conditions. In 1956, Volvo updated the Titan with air brakes, adding a layer of safety and reliability to its already strong reputation for mechanical robustness. The combination of turbocharging, air brakes, and Volvo's growing engineering confidence made the Titan the dominant heavy truck on European roads through the late 1950s and into the 1960s. In 1965, the Titan was significantly updated and relaunched as the N88, increasing its turbo diesel output to 260 horsepower, adding a fully synchronized 8-speed gearbox, power steering, and a newly designed cab with driver safety in mind. The N88 continued in production until 1973, a remarkable 22-year lineage from the original L395 to the final model. What the Titan gave European trucking was proof that a long-haul truck could be both powerful and refined. European operators in the 1950s and 60s were skeptical of Swedish trucks. The market was dominated by British and German manufacturers who had home field advantages in parts supply and dealer networks. The Titan overcame that skepticism through sheer performance. Operators who ran Titans discovered they broke down less, lasted longer, and in the turbocharged version, pulled heavier loads with more confidence than anything else in their fleet. The Titan was described by those who worked with it as the king of European transport by road during the 50s and 60s. That wasn't marketing language. It was what operators said when they were comparing notes at depots and fuel stops. The Titan's reputation preceded it, and that reputation built the customer base that would later make the F88 and F86 international successes. Without the Titan, there is no global Volvo trucks. Number 3. Kenworth W900. In 1961, Kenworth debuted a truck that would define the American long-haul conventional for over 6 decades. The first-generation W900, the narrow-hood model produced from 1961 to 1964, was the truck that started the entire dynasty. The W in W900 stands for Worthington, one of the 2 founders of Kenworth, whose company had been reincorporated as Kenworth Motor Truck Company in January 1923 in Seattle. By the time the W900 arrived, Kenworth had been building custom specification trucks for nearly 40 years. They understood what operators wanted in ways that assembly line manufacturers could not always match. The first-generation W900 introduced design elements that would survive for decades. The cab was rebuilt from the 900 series foundation, but substantially enlarged, 6 inches wider and 4 inches taller. The 2 windshield panes were mounted together to create a wider, cleaner forward view. Bulkhead-style doors with full-length hinges replaced the previous design. The roof panel changed from metal to fiberglass, reducing weight at the top of the structure. The radiator was widened for better engine cooling, and the forward-tilting fiberglass hood, which had been an option on the 900 series, became standard equipment on the W900. Engine options followed the market. Cummins, Caterpillar, and Detroit Diesel were all available. The W900's larger engine bay, one of the benefits of its conventional long-nose design, allowed Kenworth to accommodate higher horsepower configurations than were possible in cab-over competitors. This mattered because diesel technology was advancing rapidly in the early 1960s, and operators who wanted the latest and most powerful engines needed a truck that had the room to hold them. By 1965, Kenworth was producing over 3,000 W900 trucks per year. The demand was clear. That same year, the truck received its first major update, the W900A, with a longer hood to accommodate even larger diesel engines and a wider radiator for improved cooling. The narrow hood first generation was retired after just 4 years, but it had established the template that every subsequent W900 would follow. In 1974, a dark green Kenworth W900 became the truck in Moving On, the NBC television series starring Claude Akins as Sonny Pruitt, a long-haul trucker navigating the American highway system. The series ran for 2 seasons and introduced millions of Americans to the visual identity of a Kenworth W900 as the definitive American big rig. Then, in 1977, a W900A with a 36-inch sleeper, driven by Jerry Reed as the character Snowman hauling a trailer of Coors beer, appeared in Smokey and the Bandit. 3 trucks were used in filming, 2 1974 models and 1 1973 model. That film and that truck became cultural icons. The first-generation W900 began a story that has never stopped. When Kenworth announced in 2025 the W900 production would end in 2026, they marked the occasion with the Legacy Edition, 1,000 serialized trucks numbered from number 1,000 down to number 0001. The announcement drew genuine emotion from the trucking community. That emotion has its roots in the narrow-hood W900 of 1961. Without that starting point, there is no story to grieve the end of. Number 2. Peterbilt 281. Needlenose. We touched on the 281 351 at number 7, but the Peterbilt 281 specifically deserves fuller treatment because this truck's cultural and historical significance extends beyond what any single entry can contain. The 281 emerged from Peterbilt's Oakland plant in 1954, the same year, by no coincidence, that Peterbilt introduced its current red oval brand emblem. The company had been sold in June 1958 to Pacific Car and Foundry, the Seattle company that also owned Kenworth, creating the rivalry between sister divisions that continues to this day under PACCAR. But the 281 predated the acquisition and reflected the company's independent character, a California truck built with California operators in mind, optimizing for weight, visibility, and driver access. The butterfly hood of the 281 was its defining visual feature, and its most practical mechanical one simultaneously. Splitting down the center and opening to both sides, it gave a driver or mechanic complete access to the engine from either side without any obstruction. On a long-haul route in the 1950s, where a breakdown could happen anywhere on two-lane highways with no cell phones and no roadside assistance for miles, that engine accessibility was the difference between a manageable problem and a catastrophic one. The all-aluminum cab kept the 281 light. In California, produce haulers were running some of the most demanding loads of any trucking application. Time-sensitive, full payload, long routes. Every pound saved on the tractor was a pound they could legally carry in cargo. Peterbilt's tradition of aluminum construction gave them a competitive edge that operators felt directly in their earnings. The 281 could reach speeds up to 74 miles per hour on the highway, significant performance for the era, while returning a fuel efficiency around 5.1 miles per gallon. It could pull trailers carrying up to 7,000 gallons of liquid cargo. The 13-speed Eaton-Fuller transmission, when fitted, offered gear ratios from 12.52 to 1 in the lowest gear to 0.73 to 1 in the highest overdrive, a wide spread that gave drivers precise control over engine load across dramatically different terrain and cargo conditions. Restored Peterbilt 281 trucks from the 1960s have sold at collector auctions for around $70,000. Examples from the 1950s command premiums above that, reflecting their scarcity and the difficulty of sourcing period-correct components. At American Truck Historical Society events, a well-preserved 281 draws a crowd. Truckers who drove them professionally, their children who heard the stories, and enthusiasts who simply understand what they're looking at. The Needlenose has a presence that newer, more refined machines struggle to match. Number 1. Mack B-61. There is one truck on this list that stands alone, not just as a respected vintage machine, but as an object of deep reverence in the global trucking community. The Mack B-61 is that truck. The Mack B-Series was introduced in 1953 as the successor to the L-Series. Between 1953 and 1966, Mack built a total of 126,745 B-Series trucks. Within that series, 10 different gasoline engines were offered, ranging from a 291 cubic inch 4.8-liter with 107 horsepower in the B20, all the way to a 707 cubic inch 11.6-liter producing 232 horsepower in the B70. A comprehensive range of diesel options was also offered. Among all the variants, the B-61 was the undisputed leader, with 47,459 units produced, more than any other B-Series model by a margin that was not even close. The B-Series arrived with a design that was a genuine leap forward from the boxier L-Series that preceded it. The sloped windshield, the larger rounded fenders, the integrated headlights, and the more streamlined hood gave the B-Series a modern, purposeful look for the mid-1950s. and sitting atop the radiator shell of every B-Series truck was the Mack Bulldog hood ornament, an icon that had already been associated with the brand for decades and whose presence on the new model line was not incidental. The Bulldog meant something. It stood for a standard of build quality and durability that the B-Series was designed to uphold. The engineering heart of the B-61 was Mack's Thermodyne diesel, specifically the END673, a 673 cubic inch inline-six developed in cooperation with Scania in Sweden. This was a direct injection diesel engine, and its introduction in 1953 alongside the B-Series was significant. Direct injection was more efficient, more powerful, and cleaner than the pre-chamber designs that had preceded it. The END673E developed 180 horsepower at 2,100 RPM and 500 pound-feet of torque at 1,400 RPM. By the time turbocharged END673 versions arrived, output climbed to approximately 220 horsepower. Between 1953 and 1966, around 80% of all Mack trucks sold were powered by Thermodyne variants. The transmissions were extraordinary. The B-61 was available with the duplex 10-speed, the triplex 15-speed, and the quadruplex 20-speed two-stick setup, arrangements that required real skill to operate. A driver who knew a quadruplex, who could feel exactly when to shift the secondary stick and time the main gear change, had mastered a skill that separated professionals from everyone else. These transmissions weren't difficult because Mack was lazy in their design. They were demanding because the engineering demanded precision, and the operators who provided that precision got performance in return. The Contour cab, available on B-61 tractors, featured a 6-inch concavity built into the rear of the cab so the tractor and trailer could couple more closely. In East Coast states with strict truck length laws, that 6 inches of legal extra trailer length had direct commercial value. It was the kind of detail that showed Mack understood not just how to build trucks, but how operators actually used them to make money. In Australia, the B-61 established Mack's reputation in one of the world's most demanding trucking environments. Outback Australia in the early 1960s was a proving ground unlike anything in North America or Europe. Road train weights, extreme heat, vast distances between any form of support, and conditions that would destroy vehicles that weren't built with absolute seriousness. The B-61 673 Thermodyne diesel pulled 32 tons GCM regularly in Australian highway service. In Outback road train service, the loads were heavier still. The truck earned its reputation there, mile by mile, in heat and dust. Even today, B-61 Macks occasionally turn up still working, usually at construction sites, running in dump truck or ready-mix configurations. Their age is visible. Their commitment is not in doubt. At ATHS and ATCA truck shows, meticulously restored B-61 trucks draw crowds of people who stand quietly, looking at the Bulldog, remembering or imagining what it meant to drive one of these across America or through the Australian outback when the highway system was young and the work was hard and unforgiving. The Mack B-61 was produced for 13 years. It took on every application the market threw at it. It worked in conditions that would have destroyed lesser machines. It ran when it had no business still running, and it did all of this under a hood ornament that had been chosen because it was the animal that bites and holds on. That is why, more than half a century after the last one left the factory, the Mack B-61 is still the truck that truckers respect above all others from its era. So that's it for today. If you like this video, then please hit the like and subscribe button for more videos. Thanks for watching.